Friends, welcome back to the Driven Podcast. Today we are joined by Jennifer Bellingrodt, a psychologist with over 20 years of experience in marriage therapy and the author of Fix Your Freaking Marriage. Known for her no-nonsense Texas style, Jennifer believes that you can't fix your partner, you can only work on yourself. From conflict resolution to premarital advice to the power of forgiveness, she shares practical strategies couples can use to strengthen their relationships at any stage. And before we dive in, today's episode is sponsored by Driven Relationships, where business growth starts with genuine human connection. At Driven, we believe that loyalty and referrals don't come from transactions, they come from trust. If you are ready to build lasting client relationships and stand out in a noisy digital world, please visit us at www.drivenrelationships.com. Jen, I am so excited to talk about this book. It has the best title. What inspired you to write this book and name it with such a bold title? Fix Your Freaking Marriage. Tell me about this book.
Yeah. So what inspired it was being married and being a psychologist for over 20 years, and seeing so many people in struggling relationships. So it's good for marriage, but it's also a primer for like premarital therapy, because it talks about like going in with your eyes wide open, like knowing the risk factors, knowing the things to look for, what are the red flags, how do we handle these issues? So it serves a broader purpose. I just had to pick a lane in publishing,
Right.
so I went with marriage. But yeah, just seeing so many people struggle in their relationships, and then knowing that I can only reach 7 people a day.
Right.
And so let's get a bigger platform to reach a lot more people. The title is just a testament to kind of how I do things. So I don't mollycoddle, and I don't, there's not a lot of, it's okay, sweetheart. No, that's just not my approach. I'm from Texas, and I think my grandmother just gave me this approach, just like no nonsense. And so the title is a little bold because I want people to understand what the book is not going to be, which is not going to be an I'm okay, you're okay, everything's fine.
Okay.
And we're going to put a magnifying glass on your stuff. And the onus is on you to fix yourself as it relates to the marriage. You can't fix your partner, but you can fix yourself, and you can, of course, pray that they'll come alongside you and fix themselves. But marriage therapy is just two people working on themselves together.
Okay. I love that. What do you think is the most common mistake that couples make, after all these people you've seen in the past 20 years? What's the most common thing?
It's just not getting out of their own damn way. And that's why, the phrase at the top of the book is all about immaturity. The shortest distance between 2 points here is immaturity. So where you are versus the marriage of your dreams, it's because one or both people are immature.
Commonly, do you see that it's just one or both that are immature?
I'd say both. If nothing else, maybe one person tends to be more of an antagonist and kind of starts things or stirs things, but then the other person doesn't necessarily respond in a mature fashion, which is hard to do. But I think we both, both parties in a relationship, we both can get going down the wrong path. So I would say both. Sometimes more of the responsibility falls on one person than the other. But you also have to remember, water seeks its own level. So the healthier we are, the healthier the people we're going to have in our environment. And so if the person in our partner tends to be a little immature, well, then we probably are too.
Okay. How do you grow? How does one grow up? How does someone become not immature? What's the first step in that?
Do the freaking work.
Do the freaking
Do the
work. Down
work,
your way,
right?
do the work.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, do the work on yourself and figure out. And there's a questionnaire in the early part of the book where I ask people to it's kind of an analog for how I do the in-depth therapy with people. But basically, it's, some questions that you can ask yourself about things that might be getting in your way and what were your role models and, stuff like that. And so, kind of going through that and figuring out where your challenges are, then that is designed to be a springboard for you to do the work to get out of your own way.
Okay. So good. Um, do people know that they're immature when they come to you? Or is that like a surprise to them? Like, oh, maybe I'm not behaving correctly. Or is it hard for people to see it? Do you see it clearly? Do they have a hard time seeing it?
Sometimes, yeah. So, I mean, I can see it pretty clearly after doing this for over 2 decades. It's more challenging with people who have ego issues. So, someone who has a very fragile ego, and isn't able to kind of introspect, look inside, have some insight, be willing to look at themselves, all the way to like someone who's a narcissist and they just really like a true tried and true narcissist is not going to end up in my office. They don't have the insight that they're the common denominator in all of their problems, and so
Okay.
they don't come in. I'll see people with narcissistic traits or features where it's kind of a sprinkling in there, but a lot of times I can get through to them and say, hey, it takes two to tango. No matter what the relationship is, it
Mhm.
takes two,
Mhm.
at least two. And
Mhm.
so, okay, maybe your wife is antagonistic and she starts a bunch of crap with you, but how you're responding isn't really helping, or
Mhm.
vice versa. Okay, your husband is, maybe sometimes he acts like a jerk or he acts immature, but you're not really responding all that well either.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a surprise. I think sometimes, I mean, I feel like people, by the time they are willing to come to therapy, they've
Yeah.
accepted that maybe they're doing something that isn't fantastic for the relationship, let's just say.
Mhm. Mhm. On the back of your book, it said, like anyone can grow in their relationship. And
Any two people can get along if they want to.
if they want to, correct.
Yeah,
Um, and you said there's no perfect marriage. And if you think you can't be helped, you're lying to yourself. You think there's room for growth in every relationship.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, I do
Yeah, just
too.
ask my husband. He'll tell you. I mean, I've been doing this for 2 decades and I don't have it all figured out for sure. I'm learning every day.
Do you find that difficult, being married and like sometimes if you're not handling something right with your husband, do you feel like he's like, this is your job. You should be good at this. Does he ever give you that? Does he ever put that on you? Like,
No, no,
that's
he knows
beautiful.
better.
Good. That's so
No,
good.
he understands that I'm not perfect,
Yeah,
and
you're human.
he's that's one of the things that I fell in love with about him is that he wasn't afraid. He has a backbone, and he's
Yeah.
not afraid to be like, "Hey, love you, mean it, but you're also missing the mark on this."
Yeah.
I mean, we just had this happen the other day with something with one of the kids, and he's like, "Hey, hey, hey, hold on.
Mm.
Don't go in there and blah 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 blah." And I was like, "I know,
Oh,
I got it. Thank you." You know,
good.
and I think that's it. Is like, our initial reaction when someone gives us feedback or says, "Hey, don't go screw this up," or "Hey, I think
Mhm.
you're kind of messing this up," is to get defensive and be like, "Well, what do you mean?" Right? But
Mhm.
again, we've been married for a long time, so I'm able to say, okay, he can be the voice of reason when my emotions are really high, and vice
Yeah.
versa. And
Yeah.
so I'm going to listen to him, and it's respect. I
Mhm.
respect what he has to say. I may not always agree with it, and he may not always agree with what I say, but the most successful couples are open to each other's influence.
Mhm.
That's the key. And that's about respect.
Yeah. Yeah. You talked about emotions getting high in a situation, and he can kind of help you during that time. What if those emotions are high and they're targeted toward one another? If your emotion is high and it's because you're upset with him, maybe not you necessarily, but a couple. If
Hmm.
they're in how do you fight fairly when your emotions are high and like maybe you're not thinking clearly because you're
Hmm.
you're so emotional at that moment. What's a good practice to have?
There's several things you can do. The book has a whole chapter on fighting fairly and
Okay.
all kinds of strategies to help you do that. It's really about it's about maturity. Again, the phrase that comes to mind is sort of rising above. So
Okay.
rising above the intensity and
Mhm.
figuring out what is the shortest distance between 2 points right here, right now.
Okay.
If we're both intense or one of us is super intense and just not getting anywhere, we're all up in our feelings, like we need to pause. And so being able to step away
Mhm.
and take a minute, chew it over with a Twix, if you will, like whatever it is, like take 20 minutes, take 24 hours, as long as you come back to it, that's key. So one of the
Okay.
strategies that I really like to use with couples is having them throw a code word. So you come up with a code
Mhm.
word
Mhm.
preemptively before the stuff hits the fan, a code word that you can use that either of you can say that is going to get the partner's attention and say either, I want to take a break. We need to calm down. You need to calm down. This isn't productive. It's not constructive. Let's circle back, whatever. So I've had people use, it needs to be something that stands out. So I've had people use
Okay.
code words like watermelon or
Mhm.
periwinkle, right?
Okay.
And it's bold enough for them to say, like, okay, wait, okay, hold on. We talked about this. Like, okay, let's implement the coping strategies. You know what, babe? Let's come back in 20 minutes.
Mhm.
Or we're not getting anywhere. Let's take this to our next session. Let's put a pin in it. I've had a lot of couples do that if they're involved in marital therapy. They're like, we'll talk to Jen about this. You know?
So Jen is the code word. Bellingrot is the
Yeah,
keyword.
right? Yeah.
I love that. My husband and I have talked about doing that, but then I think I forget that word in that moment. I think that needs to be something that we revisit. I really like that.
Hmm.
What if your personalities are very different? What if the wife is very timid and the husband is very strong in his personality, or vice versa? What do you do when you just feel like, or maybe the other person is better with words, or you are better with your words? How do you kind of give advice on those difficult like personalities?
Yeah, it's tricky. So again, I think you have to look in and
Hmm.
figure out what happens to me in these situations or what things trigger me to go into shutdown or withdrawal or
Mm.
to be,
Yeah.
a mouse and not speak up when there's really something I want to say.
Mhm.
So doing your own work and then working on within that, either with your partner or by yourself, working on communication skills.
Okay.
So, or if your partner is someone who is really versed in their words and they're really quick and you're one of those people who afterwards is like, damn it, why didn't I say that? Or I should have said that, or shoot, I forgot to bring
Yeah.
that up. Then, you can ask for a pause and you can circle back to a situation.
Mhm.
So, just because we finished talking about an issue on a Monday night doesn't
Mhm.
mean that on Tuesday, after I gather my thoughts and I have some other things I want to say, doesn't mean I can't circle back and say, hey, babe, that situation from yesterday, I slept on it, I prayed over it, I thought about it, whatever. And I've got some things that came up for me. I want to revisit that. When do you think we can come back together? Oh, well, I have a meeting at 5, but I'll be done by 6. And so let's do that after dinner or whatever.
Mhm.
Set up a time to come back to it, just because it doesn't have to be a one and done.
Yeah.
And if you don't resolve the underlying, this is the tricky part. If you
Mhm.
don't
Mhm.
resolve the underlying issues that pervade the relationship, it's not going to be a one and done.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not going to be a 2 and through. It's not going to be a 3 and free. We're going to have to talk about it a few times. And we might need to call in reinforcements by virtue of a coach or a therapist.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do those are those underlying issues similar for every couple that you work with, or are those underlying issues different for every couple? And do you find that there are underlying issues, like it's the same thing that couples keep going back to?
Hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Um, so I think they're all the same in terms of immaturity.
Okay.
They manifest differently.
Okay.
So let me give an example. I have a couple, he has a significantly traumatic history.
Okay.
And when we started, he hadn't worked through those issues and forgiven the relevant party.
Okay.
And so what was happening was he's holding on to this stuff,
Mhm.
and then something happens in his relationship with his wife that triggers him to feel less than or not feel good enough or whatever he thinks she's saying. That triggers his historical stuff, and now it's doubly impactful for him, and so then he becomes defensive.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
his defense is, "Oh yeah? Well, what about you? Well, how about when
Mm.
you do this?" Well, this isn't the time and place. We're talking about you right now. I'm happy to
Mhm.
talk about me, but let's do that separately. I'm not going to
Mhm.
avoid or act like I'm perfect, but let's not bring in all of this stuff when we're trying to talk about the issue here. It's kitchen sinking is what I call it. So we're trying to talk about this one thing, and then people start throwing in all these. We're not going to get anywhere. Lord, that's like a week long therapy retreat to unpack all of that, like one thing at a time.
Okay. Is that hard for people to do, to stick to one topic?
It is
It
a lot of times, and I have to keep redirecting. But what really helps with this process
Mhm.
is when I do couples therapy, I
Mhm.
meet with each person individually
Okay.
for several sessions for a complete intake, where we look at all of their patterns and we do a deep dive into family of origin to see kind of where their triggers are coming from, what's getting their goat, if you will. And then by the time they come together in therapy to, conjoint sessions now with the three of us, the couple and I, then
Mhm.
I'm able to say, hey, okay, so I think you're going back. I think this is your
Mm.
dad stuff coming up.
Okay.
Or, wow, I think mom's really chirping in your ear right now with your reaction to your
Mhm.
husband. Or, because we've done the intakes and I know their stuff, and then they give me permission, of course, to bring that up in the conjoint sessions. If they don't, then I don't. But a lot of
Mhm.
times it's so eye-opening for them that change is just it's almost automatic. Like they can
Okay.
see, oh yeah, I need to forgive this and move forward, or I'm holding on to this. Another couple, he was holding on to an affair that she had 10
Mm.
years ago,
Mhm.
and he hadn't forgiven her, and he felt like she had never fully apologized. It was always
Mhm.
an "I'm sorry, but." So he
Okay.
felt like there was excuse making. Well, we had her do an earnest apology written out, and it was a game changer. I mean, brought them
Mhm.
both to tears. It was a game
Wow.
changer for their relationship.
That must be really rewarding for you to see the healing.
Yes. To see people, whether it's marriage or my other specialty, personality disorders, to be able to say to someone, it doesn't have to be this way.
Mhm.
Excuse me. And then to see when they're like, oh, I can do this differently, and you
Mhm.
watch it and you just sort of see the light bulb moment for them,
Mhm.
right? That's hugely rewarding. That's what keeps me coming back every day.
Jen, you and I went on a walk many moons ago. I came to
Yeah.
your house, we went on a walk. I don't
Yeah.
even remember why this all came together, but we were talking about an issue in marriage. And one of the things you said to me was at some point in a marriage, a couple has to draw a line in the sand and say, we're not going back. So, like this person with the affair and holding on to unforgiveness. In any issue, I think you were referring to, you draw a line in the sand, you fix it, you go through it, you write the apology, you say the apology, you receive the apology, and then you move forward and you don't look back. Is that still something that you say to people? Do you believe in that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a clean slate. I mean, and and it's not just wiping the slate clean and not processing or dealing with the
Mhm.
crap that's happened. By
Yeah.
the time people get into my office, there's a lot of water under the bridge for them,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So there's a lot of stuff that has to be
Mhm.
processed, reframed, unpacked, reprocessed, and then compartmentalized. Now,
Mhm.
compartmentalization doesn't mean I'm going to put it on a shelf and act like it never happened. It means I'm going to store that in my memory in an adaptive, productive, constructive, forward moving sort of way. So
Mm-hmm.
like the infidelity. My wife did this horrible thing, but
Mm-hmm.
she has apologized. She's in therapy. I'm in therapy. We're in therapy together. She's
Mm-hmm.
never done anything like that since. We've done all the trust restoration, which I talk about in the infidelity chapter.
Yeah.
Like, how do you restore trust after all that?
Mm-hmm.
We've done those things. We're actively working on ourselves, so there's no going back.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the notion of forgiveness, this is, I believe in a biblical notion of forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
which
I do.
doesn't mean condoning or saying it's okay that you did that, or I understand, or I accept. No, absolutely not. You can forgive someone and choose not to have them in your life ever again, right?
Okay.
Whether that's marriage or something else. But in a marriage that wants to stay together, the forgiveness is okay. So, like going back to this infidelity thing, he forgave his wife. Doesn't mean that he never thought about it again. Doesn't mean that we plucked those memories out and he forgot all about it, right?
Mm,
We don't have that technology, at least not yet.
yeah.
So it's still there for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So forgiveness, the Bible talks about 7 times 70 is how many times you should forgive someone. That's not to say you let the same person hurt you 490 times.
Mm-hmm.
What it's saying is that you make a decision to forgive, whatever that looks like, and then every time that memory comes up again, you remind yourself that you're living in forgiveness and you
Mm-hmm.
don't let it affect your mood, your interactions with your partner, et cetera, et cetera. So it's overcoming, it's a process. It's a process.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's hard to like make it go away immediately. Time helps.
Yes.
I also think sometimes if there's someone in the relationship whose memory isn't as good, I think they're happier a lot of times. When they like I have a lot of friends. I'm probably the one in my marriage that has the worst memory, which I think is good. And I have some family members that have the best memory and they've held on to some things that it'd be probably best just to let it go. I think and it serves me well in forgiving people. It doesn't serve me well when I need to like speak eloquently or retain information sometimes, but my memory isn't as good as
Right.
other people's. But I think I don't it's hard too, I think when you've been hurt. I think it's hard to let some things go at times.
Well, and that's because you're looking at a couple of different things. The memory in that case is encoded in the brain with emotion on top of it.
Yes.
Right? So it's like if you look at, data,
Mhm.
information, stuff that we store in memory as bits of information, intellectual information, like when you're speaking and you want to hit 5 points in your
Yeah.
message,
Hmm.
that's encoded in, let's say that's one bit of information for every 5 pieces, or for all the, each of the 5 pieces. So let's just call it 5 pieces, 5 bits for the sake of discussion. Well, if it's a significant emotional event, or 5 significant emotional events, each of those is encoded with multiple bits. So they take up more information
More
in the brain.
space.
Yeah, more space. I mean, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's a lot.
It is. Yeah. So emotion is because there are certain brain structures implicated in memory, and there are certain brain structures implicated in emotionality. And when it comes to a significant emotional event, you're looking at both. So
Mhm.
it's deeply encoded.
Oh, I have so many questions.
Okay,
But
go
then I'm
for
going to
it.
start talking about my own marriage, and John would not love that if we're doing this publicly. um, so I went through marriage counseling before my husband and I got married. Interestingly enough, the couple that counseled us is now divorced.
Oh my God.
Yes, and that's a whole nother thing. But I guess what would you say to someone who isn't yet married but wants to enter into a relationship with truly their eyes wide open of like, what are the things to look for? Like, what advice would you give to your children, as they get into their 20s, marriage age, or other friends of yours? What kind of advice would you give?
Well, read the book. I've got several
Read the
copies right
book.
there if you need one, right? Fix your freaking marriage. But basically, the very first part of that book, I detail 11 reasons why marriages don't work. And
Okay.
so I would say use that as a primer. Like, go in, read these, and I could talk about a couple of them, but
Okay.
read
Okay.
these and think about, like, okay, am I getting into my marriage, or am I getting into a marriage or long-term relationship or whatever, committed relationship, for any of these wrong reasons?
Okay.
So sometimes it's a marriage of convenience.
Mm.
Sometimes it's external pressure that people get married for.
Mm.
Sometimes it's, well, we've been together a really long time and it just seems like the next natural thing to do.
Okay.
But things change sometimes when you put a ring on it. And so then it's like this, it's not necessarily a malicious thing, but it's like this, okay, well, we've captured the flag, if you will. And
Mhm.
so I've got that commitment, and then
Mhm.
things start to come out that aren't so great, even when
Okay.
people have been married for a long time. One of the most probably relevant reasons in this day and age has to do with what I call booty blinders. And that is, I know it's terrible, but that is when people get together
Uh-huh.
and they have sex right
Okay.
away in the relationship. And it's great and it's fun and it's exciting. It's the novelty of it. Or maybe this person is really talented in bed or whatever. It's very appealing for them. And
Okay.
they have this wonderful sex life. And they're like, hey, let's get married. This is great. This is fun.
Mhm.
Well, then something happens where the novelty wears off
Mhm.
and they don't really know each other. They know each other in
Mm.
the carnal sense, but
Right.
not in all these other ways. So, my biggest caution to anyone who will listen, my children included, is keep sex out of the equation. Sex is the
Mm.
easy part. Mark says, my husband says, sex is like pizza. Even when it sucks, it's still pretty good. So, right? So it's this one plus one is two. This is not complicated. Like,
Okay.
that is
Yeah.
the easy part. And
Yeah.
so get to know someone in all these
Mhm.
other ways. So in the book I talk about a number of different types of intimacy, the last of which is sexual. Now, I do
Okay.
think there should be sexual intimacy as part of a marriage. I think it's a very important part of a healthy marriage.
Yes.
But you want to get to know someone in these other ways so that when you're
Yeah.
not having sex like 20 somethings anymore, you still have
Mhm.
a foundation on which to build and know each other. So I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest thing, is take off the booty blinders and focus on getting to know and connect with someone in these other ways, emotionally,
Mhm.
psychologically, spiritually, financially, experientially. The list is
Mhm.
long. There are like 8 types that I talk about.
Jen, how long is a dating or courting time? Like, what's a good amount of time? Do you see like an average, like a number of months, years for someone to really know one another? Is it important to also know their extended family, their parents, their siblings, their friends? What's your advice on that? What have you seen?
Yeah, I would say it's very important to know their family, assuming they're not estranged from them,
Okay.
which is a whole other probably discussion.
Hmm.
But getting to know their family, their friends, yeah, definitely being involved. What I tell people, my preference is
Hmm.
2 years.
Okay.
So from dating to marriage, wherever engagement falls, it doesn't really matter, but
Hmm.
2 years
Hmm.
before marriage. If you just can't do that, at
Hmm.
least a year. And
Okay.
the reason is this: most people can
Hmm.
maintain a facade,
Hmm.
right, for several months. I
Yeah.
mean, sociopaths and psychopaths can do it indefinitely. And I mean, there's a chance you're hooking up with one of those. But, in general, for most people, after a year's time, you've been through quite a bit. You've been through all the holidays
Yeah.
and whatever that involves, whether they're with family or they're estranged from family, and that's very difficult for them. You've met their friends, you've gone out, maybe you've traveled together, so you've really gotten to know them. So my preference is 2 years, but I'll take a year.
Okay. Okay. I like it. So you have a Christian worldview.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on sex before marriage as a
So,
parent and as a therapist?
well, yeah, they're one and the same, which
Okay.
is basically avoid it.
Okay.
Um, that's my preference, right? I
Okay.
want my children to avoid sex before
Mhm.
marriage for biblical reasons, for faith reasons, but also for like what we were just talking about, the reasons that it can complicate things.
Yeah.
Now, I
Yeah.
realize that most of the world, even people who identify as Christians, don't necessarily stay away from fornication, having sex before marriage, right? So, what I say in that situation is, again, it's not my preference, but if you are going to do that, it needs to be a very well informed decision. And
Mhm.
make sure, going back to the booty blinders, make sure you know this person and
Mhm.
are ready to be with this person for the long term, preferably forever, before
Mhm.
you give of yourself in that way. It's not something you can take back,
Yeah. That's
right? Whereas if you're committing to someone and getting to know them in all of these other ways, then you've got that connection and maybe you've invested time, but you haven't given of yourself in the physical, sexual way. Because when there's a breakup, if that is involved, it makes the breakup monumentally more difficult across the board.
yeah. Yeah.
That's what I've seen.
Yeah. So I'm sure you talk to your kids pretty openly about that stuff.
Yes.
Okay. But at what age do you start talking about that? Our kids are older.
Hmm.
I mean, they're teenagers.
Right.
I have young adults. I had a friend say to me once, if you wait until they're 8, it's too late. And we definitely talk to our kids about sex before that age.
Hmm.
When did you start talking to your children about that?
I like that little
You like
mnemonic.
that? You can use
Uh,
that.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'll let you use that.
Um, yeah. So, yeah, I think before the age of 8, I'm trying to remember, gosh, that was a long time ago when our kids were that little.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't remember how, I mean, we gave them the birds and the bees talk
Okay, yeah.
well before they were even in relationships.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but just, talking with them about parts of their body and just
Mhm.
calling body parts by their actual names
Yeah,
and all of that stuff. Yeah, that started when they were as soon as they were verbal and
yeah.
could understand. And then once you lay that foundation, I think, you've already shown them it's okay to talk about sexual
Mhm.
things, our sexual parts, our genitalia, whatever. And so that opens the door, hopefully, for them to feel more
Mhm.
comfortable talking about the other stuff. And so then
Yes.
when they come with questions or, you know, they see mom and dad, hugging or kissing and they have questions about that, or, if they walk in on something, which kids have, been known to do, we can talk openly about that because the foundation is already there, you know?
Yes.
Yeah,
No,
so I
I
like
agree.
that. If you wait until they're 8, it's too late. Yeah.
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 Yeah, because their friends are gonna start telling them about it, and you
Oh
want
my
to be the
gosh.
one that talks about it.
Right.
So if you meet some couples who say their marriage is pretty good, what are some small tweaks that they could make to make it even better?
So I always want to know, well, what do you mean by pretty good? How do you define
Mm,
pretty good, right? Because
yeah,
normal is what you know. I mean,
yeah.
I was just talking with someone recently who came from an abusive childhood, and it was a while before she figured out that parents don't all treat their kids that way. So, normal is what you know, it's what you're used to. And
Yeah.
sometimes in marriages, especially if they're longer, they've sort of, there's this natural tendency toward isolation and drift in marriage, and you have to do things to make sure that you keep things fresh, interesting, you keep
Mhm.
that connection, that we don't just end up living like roommates.
Yeah.
So I think I would want them to define, what do you mean by pretty good? One
Mm,
area that I feel like is something that can always be improved on is what I call experiential intimacy. And what that
okay.
means is, like, what are we doing things together? You don't
Mm,
have to do everything together. I don't actually believe in putting all of your eggs in one basket that way, but
mhm,
I think it's, do we, are there things that we want to do together? Now, maybe when you met, you were in your teens or 20s or 30s, and you're in a different body and you were doing different things then, hiking, skydiving, whatever. And maybe
right.
you're 50, 60, 70, and you can't do those things anymore, or you don't
Mm,
want to. Okay, well, you need to reevaluate your experiential connection. So I
mhm.
think improvement can always be made there.
Okay.
I also think boundaries, like looking at patterns that couples have fallen into, and just making sure those are healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's all very subjective. So I would first want to start with, what's your definition? But then
Mm-hmm.
experiential intimacy is one. Sexual intimacy usually can use a little bit of work, because by the
Yeah.
time people have been together for a long time, maybe they have some dissatisfaction in their sexual relationship.
Yeah. Do you talk?
Spirituality, that's always a place for growth too.
Mm-hmm. Do you end up talking about sex a lot on a daily basis
Mm,
with couples?
I I wouldn't say a lot.
Mm.
Men are usually really uncomfortable with it. It's kind of comical, honestly. But yeah,
Do you think it's because they're talking to you, a female? Do you think men would be different if they were talking to another man or
absolutely.
wife in the room?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm fully aware that, the gender difference there is making things challenging. But
Yeah.
I approach it in such a way that it's very disarming.
Yeah.
And I normalize it too, because there are so many couples with sexual
Yeah.
challenges
Yeah.
of one
Yeah.
sort or another.
Hmm.
Um, but I would say that in most marriages, we end up talking about sex at some
Okay.
point, but it's
Okay.
not a necessity. I mean, if people are like, listen, like I have a couple, their sex life is great. They have no complaints. They're both very happy. I've asked questions about that and they're fine and they're wonderful. So we don't really talk about that.
Okay.
We talk about all these other things.
Okay. Yeah.
So it
It's
just
all
depends.
it's all a piece of
The puzzle.
it is. It really is. If there are people who their marriage is truly on the rocks, what's the very first step they could take? I know by the book,
Yeah.
or it's all outlined in there, but like,
Yeah.
what's one thing like that you would say to someone whose marriage is on the rocks? What kind of advice would you give to someone like that?
I would say get a coach. I mean, stellar, ridiculously paid athletes have coaches, right?
Yeah.
Like why we think the marriage of two heads in one relationship doesn't need a
Mm.
coach is beyond me. But
Hmm.
definitely get some help. And if your
Yeah.
partner isn't interested in help, because that happens not infrequently, where one person is willing and the other one not so much,
Okay.
there's a reason for that, and
Mm.
that's probably worth a discussion into itself. But you can go to therapy and start working on yourself. You can read my book, you can read other books, you can
Yeah.
do self-help stuff, you can take courses. I have a course on overcoming self-limiting beliefs that I find I end up coaching a lot of that in the marriage, in the
Okay.
individual stuff, and then in the marriage, because people have these self-limiting beliefs that have evolved from when they were little, usually before the age of 6 even, and they
Hmm.
carry that garbage with them. And so working on yourself is key. Again,
Yeah.
marriage therapy is two people working on themselves together.
Yeah.
So work on yourself, see if your partner's willing to do therapy or some sort of coaching.
Mhm.
Do a retreat. There are marriage retreats that are like, 4 or 5 days long. It's an intensive, immersive experience. And those can be really wonderful, especially if someone's not interested or doesn't feel like they have the time to do
Mhm.
like regular therapy once or twice a week. You go to these immersive retreats and,
Mhm.
wow, you cover a lot of ground in that time.
Mhm. I think even just scheduling a weekend away with just you and your husband or you and your wife as a married
Hmm.
couple
Hmm.
and saying, you know what, we're going to read and work on a few chapters.
Hmm.
And then once a week after that, we're going to finish this book until we're through it. Like
Yeah.
just committing to setting aside a time
Hmm.
to really look at your marriage. I think sometimes it's just not fun to because you're married, you are supposed to be having fun together, but then you're also supposed to be maybe running a business together or even separately. You're both working or doing whatever. And you're supposed to be
Mhm.
raising your children. And then you're supposed to be a good son and daughter to your aging parents, or you're supposed to be a
Mhm.
friend. Like there's just a lot going on. And then I just think it's just really good to take the time to say, hey, we're going to actually just like be intentional with our relationship and not forget who the other person is. Because when you're first
Yeah.
dating, I remember John and I sitting on opposite ends of the couch when we were first dating and like our feet all intertwined and just talking for hours and
Oh,
hours, not watching TV, not
yeah.
surfing on our phones,
Mhm.
like just connecting. And I would say that doesn't happen as much now. at 45 and 46, because you're just, you don't make it a priority as much as you did
That's the thing.
when you're
Yeah,
young.
the intentionality is the
Mhm.
antidote for a lot of things. It's the antidote for the immaturity, it's the antidote for the isolation and drift, just being intentional. The other thing that really helps is successful couples hold in mind the image of the person they stepped into love with all those years ago. 1 year
Yeah.
ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, 55 years ago, whatever. If they can hold that image somewhere in their brain of this person they chose to step into love with,
Mm,
that is huge, because what that does is it helps you to remember that your partner has good intentions. When
mm,
you believe that your partner has good intentions, or at least not bad intentions, then
mhm,
it helps you respond in a way that's not defensive or immature or provocative.
mm. I love that. I've written a few things down while you're
I
talking.
love it. I love
It's
it.
really good. Another thing I heard, I think when I was first married was, when you feel mad at your husband, picture him as a little boy.
Mm,
And
yeah,
how would you respond to him if he was a little boy? And you think about your children and how quick you are to remember that you're the parent. Like, I'm the parent, I am the mature one. That child is the immature one. And sometimes I don't always get this right. Sometimes I'm like in this battle with my kids and I'm like, I need to stop. I'm the parent. I'm the mature one.
right.
But I think if you can pull yourself out of that too, when you're in conflict with your spouse, if you can like stop yourself and be like, listen, I'm a mature 45-year-old woman, wife, daughter, friend. I need to behave that way in this moment. Like, just reminding yourself who you are.
Mhm,
And like I was just saying, picture my husband as that little boy, that sweet little
mhm.
innocent boy. And that to me reminds me, love him, respect him. Love and respect is
Yeah,
kind of, they feel, they feel love when they're respected. But
right.
I need to keep remembering to do that in those moments. Remember him as a sweet little boy,
Yeah,
or that handsome 22-year-old that I met
right, right.
many moons ago.
Yeah.
So my partner has good intentions.
Hmm.
I love that. I need to wear a sign or a shirt that says, I have good intentions.
Right.
Keep reminded. Um, okay. I love that if any two people can get along if they want to. So what happens when there's one person that maybe just has chosen not to? Is there any hope there for that relationship? If they're like, what, I don't want to. I don't want to work on this.
Well, if they don't want to work on it and they've already checked out, then, I tell people, look, if we're going to do this marriage therapy thing, I need
Mhm.
both of you to at least have one foot in the door,
Okay.
right?
A toe in the door.
Something in the
Something
door,
in the
right?
door.
If
Okay.
both feet are out of the door, then you're wasting your time and money coming to see me,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
you're not going to change or grow. I think we should grow and change and evolve until we die.
Yeah.
So otherwise, what are we doing? Like, it's just,
Yeah.
we're stagnating, and that's no fun.
Yeah.
So if somebody is just not interested, well,
Mhm.
then we start talking about, boundaries. I believe there's a time and a place in marriage for ultimatums sometimes, so
Mm,
we
mhm.
look at that. If the other person is like, I love my spouse, if one person is like, let's do this therapy thing, I'm ready, let's go, let me work on me, and the other person is like, I don't really want to do therapy, I don't believe in it, or I don't like it.
Yeah.
Generally, when someone doesn't want to come to therapy,
Mhm.
it's fear. They're afraid.
Mm.
Why else would you not go and talk to someone about improving your relationship? You're
What
afraid.
would what would they be afraid of, Jen?
They're afraid of what'll come up.
Mm.
So either their inadequacies, because they fear their partner is going to be like, well, they do this and they do this and they do this, and we don't
Mm.
really allow that. Like, I try to make it very balanced, but a lot of
Okay.
that comes out in the individual sessions too. So then there's not that sort of antagonistic setup from the
Yeah.
jump.
Yeah.
Um, but they fear what their spouse has to say. A lot of people
Mhm.
fear their own baggage. So they have some inclination that what they're doing in the relationship is not this fabulous, super wonderful.
Mm.
And they know that it comes from somewhere else. And so they fear that, well, if I go to therapy, the shrink is going to make me dig in and trudge all this up and la la la. Like, they're afraid.
Yeah.
They're just afraid. It's the reason we don't do just about anything.
Yeah. Fear can be crippling. I think
Yeah.
most of the people that I talk to and interview that are entrepreneurs, they're okay with taking risk, and they've pushed through that fear barrier.
Hmm.
They are okay with being scared and still doing something.
You have to. Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
so if the other person is not at all interested, that's one thing. If the partner is like, I love my wife and I want to stay together and I don't have any interest in leaving, but I just am not going to do the therapy thing, then what I say to the willing spouse is, okay, let's work on you. Again, work on yourself, that improves your
Yeah.
marriage. So you start responding differently. Maybe he's the immature one or maybe you are, whatever, but
Yeah.
you start responding differently and
Mhm.
let's see what happens.
Mhm. I love that.
Yeah. Sometimes the spouse, this is a little maybe manipulative, but sometimes the spouse who's not willing to do therapy, they're just scared, right? And
Mhm.
so if I say, how about this? Have your spouse come in and
Mhm.
just identify to me from their perspective what they think the issues are.
Okay.
And then you and I will go back offline and do our thing.
Mhm.
10 to 1, what
Mm.
happens is the other spouse comes in, they realize I'm not Lucifer in human form,
Yeah, you're a great person.
and right? And they're not they realize that we're not going to sit around and drink coffee and blame our parents for all the things they did wrong. Like life
Mm.
is too short for that.
Yeah.
They realize that I can be very disarming if I need to be, that
Mhm.
I'm not off-putting at least. And then they're willing to, okay, you know what? I'll go back and see that lady. That's
Mhm.
usually what
Yeah.
happens. Yeah.
Well, Jen,
Mm.
I've told you this before, but you are a therapist that my husband has referred people to. So John is a corporate coach and does leadership development and executive training, and he has sent people to you. He trusts you, and I think that I would take that as a big compliment.
I
Um,
do. I
yeah,
do actually. Yeah.
that because I think sometimes too, like for men to go to therapy, um, to go to a woman, it has to be a unique person who will listen to them, who will respect them, who will see their point of view and not just because I think sometimes they can feel like maybe you would take the woman's side because you're a female.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe I just think that because you understand women more, maybe because you're a woman.
Mhm.
But I think you can see both sides. And you being from Texas and having a straight shooter kind of attitude. It just makes you very relatable, I think, to a man. Do you have
Thank you.
brothers?
Yes. I don't. I have 2 younger sisters, but I
Oh,
also did 4 years on active duty in the Army.
okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I tend to think in a lot of ways, I tend to think more like a man.
Mhm.
So I think that helps because people are able to see that it's not just this, I'm going to take the woman's side and your husband is this big bad awful guy and
Right.
it's just
Yeah.
so what's wrong with you, sir? Right? Like they see
Right.
that that's just not what I'm about.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, obviously, if there's abuse going on or some, I mean, all bets are off. That's a whole different discussion. But
Yeah.
in general, they can see that, like, okay, she's not this super soft
Mhm.
person who's just going to blame me for everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're in a marriage. It takes two people to make it
Hmm.
good, and it takes two to be in a conflict. So there's
Hmm.
things that
Yep.
both parties can work on all the time.
Mhm.
I want to talk a little bit about it. It is a little scary as a parent because I'm probably creating baggage right now for my children. And like if you start digging into your past, you don't want to become angry at your parents. I have a really good relation with my parents now. I'm sure I've picked up a really great things from them, and I'm sure I've picked up some things that I could work on from them. I like what you said though, that you don't stay in that. Like you don't just sit there and blame your parents and
Yeah.
sit in that for a long time, but does that ever bring up hard things for people to deal with their parents? And how
Yes.
do you move through that quickly so that you can still have something good? Can you give me an example of something that you've dealt with?
Well, so a lot of that comes out in the intake. So I'm working with each person on identifying their baggage. That's why we spend a good amount of time digging into family of origin. And
Okay.
so we spend a good amount of time in that area.
Mhm.
And by a good amount of time, I'm talking like maybe 2, 3 sessions. We're not talking weeks and weeks and months in general. So we're looking at that, we're identifying some of that for them.
Mhm.
What I tell people is our parents teach us two things: what to do and what not to do. And
Right.
sometimes we learn more about one than the other, and that's
Right.
okay. It's
Mhm.
our job to grow and evolve and change and do differently.
Mhm.
If we want a different life, do different things, right? The
Yeah.
opposite of the definition of insanity.
Mhm.
So, if those things come up, then we're talking about that in the individual work.
Mhm.
If they come up in the marital work, I bring it up or somebody brings it up, whatever, then we either kind of walk through it right there, or I'll say, hey, so and so, let's do a session offline, individual. We need to unpack this. Your stuff is getting in your way,
Mhm.
and we need to unpack this.
Mhm.
And of course, I say it more diplomatically than that, but that's the gist.
Mhm.
So then we're talking about that, and we're the key with that a lot of times is rendering forgiveness. Your
Mm.
parents, my parents, the neighbor's parents, everybody's parents did the
Mhm.
best they could at the time with what they had available to them in their own perspective. That's crucial because we might look at things that other parents have done, our parents, other parents, and go, that was definitely not the best they could have done.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it's in their perspective in that moment with whatever skills they have or don't have. So it's all
Mhm.
very subjective. But being able to release yourself from the unforgiveness that you're living
Mhm.
in, release yourself from the damage that was done, that's huge if you want a healthy relationship or just a healthy personal life.
Yeah.
So we jump on it quickly and we reprocess, reframe, forgive and compartmentalize. If you're not willing to forgive, I don't advise that, but if you're not willing to forgive, then we are going to try to compartmentalize it differently at least.
Can you help someone understand how to forgive? I know we talked about in the beginning about 70 times 7. Are there practical tools that you can perform to help you forgive? Like, do you teach someone to say like, I forgive the name and the specific thing? Is there something you can do to practically like practice forgiveness?
Yeah, so chapter 4 in the book
Okay.
is all about forgiveness. It's the first, what I call meaty
Great.
chapter, because
Okay.
again, by the time I see a couple, there's water under the bridge and some
Oh,
stuff that we
yeah.
probably need
Yeah.
to forgive.
Yeah.
So the chapter talks about how to forgive yourself and how to
Mm.
forgive someone else.
Okay.
And so that is just, it's step by step. It's very clear and laid out so that it's
Okay.
very practical. It's still
Mm.
emotional, but there's practicality to it that you can follow. There's a concept known as radical forgiveness,
Okay.
which is where you do what you were talking about, where you're just like, I forgive so and so for such and such. Today
Mhm.
is the day. I am
Okay.
wiping the slate. I refuse to
Mm.
let that hang over me anymore.
Mm.
Radical forgiveness is very difficult. Not everybody is able to do that. I
Mm.
don't I don't necessarily love it if it's done, um, if it's not informed. So what I want
Okay.
people to do is walk through the steps of forgiveness.
Yeah.
Really get to a place where you can set this aside and
Mm.
release yourself from the emotional control that person has. I'm
Yeah.
actually getting ready to hit send on my third book, which is called The Betrayal Breakthrough.
Oh, good for
Yeah,
you.
it's transforming pain into power. And
Okay.
so the idea there is that when you've been betrayed, whatever that
Mm.
betrayal is, it
Mhm.
happened because I was betrayed by a colleague. And I
Mhm.
just started writing, and before I knew it, I had 6,000 words, and I was like, okay, this is going to be a book. We need to do this.
Wow, good for you.
So, so it's I love it. It's
Okay.
very well researched and based on 20 years of my own betrayals and walking other people through betrayals. But I go into that a lot in the book about how to overcome that, truly overcome and
Mhm.
render forgiveness because
Mhm.
it's important. And most of the time, I would say almost all of the time, once I can clarify with people what forgiveness actually means and doesn't, then they're willing to do it.
Mhm. We talk a lot about grief as a society and all the different stages of grief and how to walk through it. I think forgiveness needs to be discussed just as much. Like grief is you're losing someone or something and you're grieving the loss of that. But I think the forgiveness, I think a lot of us could experience a ton of healing on this planet and restoration of relationships and friendships and relationships, restoration of relationships by learning how to forgive well and how to receive someone's forgiveness. I'm going to look into it more. I love the idea of forgiveness.
Yeah, read chapter 4 and see what
Okay.
that stirs up for you. We
Yeah.
can always do another podcast on forgiveness. My
I
gosh, there's
think we
plenty
need
to
to
say
jump in
about
again.
that.
This is so amazing, Jen. I'm going to put the link to your book in the podcast. I think I was going to bring this on the plane with me, but I'm like, oh gosh, I don't want the people next to me think my marriage is a disaster. I just want to read this and really dig into some of these tools just to make my marriage better. Like, why have it be even good or okay? Like, why not have it be great? I think all of us in everything in life, why have an okay business if you can have a great business? Why have an
Right.
okay home if you can make it cozier, more inviting?
Hmm.
Why have an okay dinner party if you can have a great dinner party? Why
Right.
not level it up? So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the people, you never know. I mean, somebody, if you're reading the book on the plane, first of all, you don't know these
yes,
people. You'll never see them
I
again.
know it's true, but I didn't
Right.
want to talk to anybody.
Right. But if they see the name and maybe their marriage is struggling, then you never
Mm,
know when you're going to help someone else. That's what I always tell people when they're like, I don't want to read this in public. And I'm like, you can't care what other people think. You
yeah,
have
that's
to
true.
stop worrying
That's true.
about that. You
You know what
know?
though, Jen? I know my mom's going to listen to this, and this is embarrassing. Sorry, mom, but I read a book, and the title of it was "Oh." It's about orgasm, and I was on the plane, but it just said "Oh," but it did say orgasm. But I was on the plane, like hiding in the corner, reading it.
Gosh.
So funny. It
Right.
sells though. This sells. This sells. And this is what people need. If they need help fixing their freaking marriage, they need to
Yeah.
pick up this book.
It's a direct approach. And I mean, I tell people, the self-evaluation, taking your own inventory is really important. And then the 16 elements, like just go through it. There's a section at
Mm,
the end of each element for you
okay.
to evaluate yourself and your partner, evaluate your marriage in that area, and think
Yeah.
about what you could do differently. There's a lot of material, 76,000 words in that book. Okay. That can be I know that can be very overwhelming. It started out as I just needed to hit 20,000 words to publish. And before I
Mm,
knew it, I had 76,000. But it can be overwhelming to read everything.
mm,
So read it, just pick a couple, two,
okay.
three things to try. There are 16 elements, pick two of them. How can
Yeah.
I be better about gratitude with my spouse? That's a huge one.
Mm,
So
yeah.
let me demonstrate more gratitude. And then there's stuff about trust. Okay, how can I be a more trustworthy person? And what can
Mm,
I ask of my spouse to be more trustworthy in my eyes? Right? Like just pick a couple things. The
mm,
subtitle for the book is Practical Tips to Just Start Somewhere. That's the key.
mhm,
Just start somewhere. Just get
mhm,
started.
mhm.
Just pick a
Yeah.
couple things.
I think our world would be a better place. The United States of America would be a better place if we all focused on fixing our marriages, making our homes good. Mother Teresa says, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. And I think the best example that we can do for our children is to love our spouse well. I think it's what God intended is for us to be in healthy families, raising strong children who will go and do the same thing,
Right?
get married, have
Absolutely.
children, love one another.
Hmm.
So Jen, thank you for making the world a better place with Fix Your Freaking Marriage.
Oh, my pleasure.
I can't wait to read the next book that you're coming out with. And we need to have another conversation. Thank you so much.
For sure. My pleasure.
Thanks again for joining us today on the Driven Podcast, where we are all about growing relationships in life and business. We hope today's story reminded you that behind every brand, every business, and every big idea, there is a real person choosing to show up, stay rooted, and lead with intention. Your story matters. So keep building, keep loving, and keep doing the hard, beautiful work of showing up in both life and business. We'll catch you next time with another real, inspiring conversation. And until then, never let love and kindness leave you. Always be a fountain, not a drain. And don't ever forget that you are the best.